Thank you. When David asked me to do this talk, I thought actually probably I need to get the members of the audience to do most of the work, because you guys will hopefully have lots of good ideas about how we can fund this research going into the future. So this is going to be a short talk, and hopefully you guys are going to give us some bright ideas. So, what types of research should we be funding? Well, I think probably the most important aspect of this is that we need to have patient-driven research, as well as research that's driven by surgeons and scientists and therapists and so on. We need to actually ask the patients about it. And in the UK, we have this organisation called the James Lind Alliance. And what they do is they bring together stakeholders who are interested in particular conditions. So, for example, there's been one in cleft lip and palate. And you bring together the carers and the doctors and the scientists and everyone, and you get a huge list of interesting questions. From that list, you then go to the literature and you find out which ones of them we actually know the answer to and which ones are still unknown. And then you pare your list down to the unknown questions, and then you have a big meeting where everyone argues with each other, and you come up with a list of the top 10 research priorities. And that is very, very powerful, especially when you go to a funding body, because you can say, well, we've engaged all of the stakeholders in this particular condition or set of conditions, and they really think this is an important question to answer. And that's a very powerful statement to give. We are just about to start running a James Lind Alliance process for hand surgery in general in the UK, so Dupuytrens will be part of that. Many people throughout the 2 days really have said this, that collaboration is going to be the key, and here are a number of people who I think need to be collaborating together. And I think if we're going to land serious amounts of funding and really take these fields forward, then all of these people have to be involved, and we have to form big networks, international networks really, to look for international funding. If I've missed anyone off there, I do apologise. So I thought I'd look at the sort of whole spectrum of research and start at the beginning, start with basic science. And I'm sorry that a lot of these will have a slight UK emphasis just because of my background and where I come from, but there will be equivalent organisations in America and in Australia and in Asia as well. Basic science, from a sort of university point of view, tends to get funded by government organisations and by charities. So I'm fortunate enough to be sponsored by the Wellcome Trust. They pay all of my wages, all my PhD students' wages. They give us money for all of the experiments that I do. There are other opportunities. There are other government opportunities, such as the Medical Research Council. There are other charities like Arthritis Research UK. And then there are pan-European governmental organisations as well, such as the European Research Council, the ERC. I think to be successful in getting funding from them, we need international collaboration. We need pan-European and probably global collaboration to come up with a programme of research that will be relevant for them. And then, of course, there's pharmaceutical companies, and they do fund some basic science research as well. But I think they probably come more into their own slightly later down the line. So from basic science research, well, what's the point of me doing basic science research? Well, I want to try and translate my findings into something that's useful for my patients. So there are then early translational studies, early clinical studies. Again, some of these charities and government funding bodies have sort of early phase schemes that you can apply for. But I think our professional bodies, so our surgical societies, come into their own here. They often have small amounts of money which can be used for pump priming, for doing early studies before you apply for much bigger grants for full-blown clinical trials. And again, I think pharmaceutical companies can be very helpful here, particularly if they happen to have a product for your target that you're looking at. And then, really, in order to convince healthcare systems, however they may be configured, to use a particular product, you have to do randomized clinical trials. That's a prerequisite really for getting medicines approved, and those trials are really expensive. And we heard about the experience with collagenase yesterday, which was a really instructive lecture about how long it takes and how expensive it is. And that was for a drug that was already approved. So you can imagine for a new treatment that's coming from the kind of studies we've been hearing about, that's going to take a long time and it's going to cost a lot of money. And so in the UK, we have something called the National Institute for Health Research, and they're the prime funder of these clinical trials. And there are similar ones in the US and in Canada, and again, the ERC will fund that as part of a program of work, really. The pharmaceutical companies, again, are good at this stage. They're experienced at this stage when it comes to tablets. They're not quite so experienced, I don't think, when you're looking at a disease that's mainly a sort of surgically treated disease. So if you're looking at injecting something into a Dupuytren's cord, for example, they don't quite have that expertise at the moment, and that's where we can work together with them. And so my final thought that I put to you is that they're all very conventional funding streams. There are new unconventional funding streams. So I came across, well, I actually heard about this on the radio. There's something called the American Gut Project. There is now something called the British Gut Project as well. And what they do is they are looking to study the microbiome within all of our guts. So we're all made up of more bacteria than we are human cells, which is quite a thought, actually. And that's right. And so what they do is you can sign up to this project and you pay $75 and they send you a kit and you send them a stool sample and they sequence your microbiome. And they have raised almost $900,000 in this way. So they've got around about 9,000, just over 9,000 people who have paid their $75. And you could get special offers, like if you buy 3, you get 1 free, and things like that. And you can sequence your pet's microbiome as well. So you can send in cat and dog, and they say you shouldn't send in alligator feces because collecting them might be a bit dangerous. So this is very new to me. I didn't know anything about crowdsourcing, but there are all sorts of things. You know, people who I was talking to Charlie yesterday, and he said he knows of people who haven't been able to afford their medical care for a child with lymphoma, and so they will put that on this site, and people will donate to that. So this is a sort of very modern, almost social media type way of funding things, and maybe we need to be thinking about that with our hand surgery and with our Dupuytren's projects as well. So I don't know if anyone is up for starting the My Hand project, and we can send for samples. I'm not quite sure how we get samples of a finger, but there we go. I'll leave that for everyone to discuss. Thank you.